Welcome to the Honor It All podcast. I'm Honor Garrett, your host, and we're here to honor all that is good in the world. Each podcast, I interview top professionals around the globe who are making a difference, impacting lives, and creating positive change. Today, our guest is Gen Stoney, known to many as the Irresistible Love Coach. She has not only been coaching for 11 years, but she also has a best-selling book called The One Thing That Changed Everything. Women come to Gen feeling passionless and disconnected from their partner, and they leave turned on by their life and exuding their sexy goddess energy. Gen, I'm so excited to have you here today on the Honor It All podcast. Welcome. How are you?
I am doing amazing. Thank you so much for having me and for that beautiful introduction.
Well, I'm so excited because I met Gen a little over a year ago, or maybe it's even been 2 years. I'm not sure. I think it's about a year and a half. And we were in a coaching group together. And it's just so exciting to see how many women that Gen has been helping. So let's get a little personal. Tell us a little bit about the journey that led you to become the Irresistible Love Coach.
Truly, I turned my mess into my message. So I hit a rock bottom in my romance and in my sobriety. So today I'm over 13 years sober from drugs and alcohol, and my husband and I just celebrated 10 plus years of marriage, but it wasn't always like that. And that is how this journey began, was when everything was a mess. And as I went on my spiritual journey, I ended up starting this beautiful process of being able to help other women heal, rise up, and really, truly connect with themselves and feel sexy again.
Well, that to me is what's so inspirational, is when people do take something that's been hard for them and have gotten to the other side. And that's when they can make such a huge impact. So tell me, how exactly do you help women? What's your process?
So my process is, there's several different ways. So I have women that are in my complimentary Facebook group, Irresistible You, and there's a huge library of complimentary content, and people get results from attending my complimentary masterclasses and joining me live on my weekly Turned On Tuesdays in there. But there's also, I have a 2-day paid masterclass, The Pleasure Queen, that involves a workbook, guided meditations, tappings that people are able to do. And then there's another layer of group coaching, and it's a 6-month commitment of coming in with me. And I take you on a journey of self-discovery, but you do it with a group of women who walk alongside you at the same time. We do workbooks, we do weekly teachings, and there's also a 30+ guided meditation and tapping vault that they have access to, and laser coaching. So there's really a huge foundation. And then there are my private clients who have access to all of this, and they get access to me through Voxer 4 days a week, and they have weekly Zoom sessions private, and I really create the personalized process just for them. So lots of different ways that we walk along this journey.
And so who's your ideal client? What are they struggling with? How do you get them from point A to point B?
Yeah, so my ideal client is a lot of women come to me that are the overachieving businesswoman, right? They have that career that is on fire and they're doing so well and they're so successful, but then they get to a point in their life where they look back and they're like, oh my gosh, my personal life is a mess. My romance is a mess. I have a roommate status marriage, or I don't even have a marriage because I don't even know how to date. And then when I do date, I date the wrong people. And so my ideal client is a woman who's already done some work, but she's ready to really commit. And she's really ready to take radical responsibility for her life. And she knows without a doubt that a romantic, pleasure-filled, sexy goddess life is her destiny. And I'm there to walk her through it and reconnect her with her. Because as we all know, Honor, and you know this, we are our best coach. And so that's what I bring my clients back to, is to really listen to their intuition and to walk alongside them in this journey and personalize the experience to fit their needs.
And sometimes it's just so hard, because I'm sure you have women come to you and go, I'm just tired. Like, how do I get that mojo back? And I'm sure you have a process for that.
Yes. Yes, I actually have a ton of women who come to me and they're just like, well, I'm tired. I'm a mom. I'm running a business. I'm exhausted. I'm just not turned on. By the time we have time to connect physically, I don't want to. This is the thing. When we wait for connection to only happen inside the bedroom, that's you are signing up for a disaster. You just are. You're putting a ton of pressure on that physical connection. You're putting a ton of sexual pressure on your partner, and you're putting a ton of pressure on yourself. So what I teach women to is to implement my tools that take 5 minutes or less, that you can implement several times throughout the day consistently. And so, because it's all about creating that sexy goddess lifestyle, because I teach my clients to turn themselves on, and their partner is the cherry on top. But they don't rely solely on them to feel validated, feel loved, feel turned on. They already feel turned on. And then when their partner's like, oh my gosh, I want to eat you up like catnip, they're like, oh, great. But they're not waiting for it like, oh my gosh, he doesn't desire me. He doesn't want me. He's falling asleep. Our partner is a mirror of what we feel like inside sexually. They are a direct mirror.
And exactly. So much of it is mindset and how you think and how you're, for me, at least, raising that vibration of how I'm showing up to everything, right? Because we have to. Well, tell me, why is this so important to you? I know that you have your own story of transformation. Do you mind sharing some of that with our audience of what you've gone through and to come to this point?
I would love to. It really started when I was younger. I had a huge struggles when it came to learning comprehension, reading. I would stare at a book for 2 hours and reread the same sentence. And so in 5th grade, I wanted to crawl out of my skin ever since I was in kindergarten. I hated myself. And in 5th grade, I learned that men were a great distraction and boys were a great distraction. And so my first drug of choice is men. And I became distracted with that like obsession of like flirting, having a crush, all of those things, feeling desired, feeling adored by somebody else. And then that led to a few years later where I found my drug of choice, which is alcohol. And that took me to a whole new level. For the first time ever, I drank by myself alone. My friend was there, but I was the only one drinking. And I experienced freedom in a way that I never experienced before. I danced in the woods with my shirt off. I felt alive. I felt freedom to be me unapologetically. And the next morning I felt like shit. I got in trouble for it. And I couldn't wait to do it again. And that led me down this beautiful road of self-destruction. And I attempted suicide. I was almost in the psych ward. I was arrested 3 times. I was raped the first time I had sex. I was raped again 2 years later by a different man across the country. And there's so many more things that happened that the list goes on. And by the grace of God, I'm alive today. And it's a true miracle and a blessing. But this is the thing, is when I got sober, I had been with my now husband for 3 weeks. So I exchanged alcohol for men. I did dive into recovery. I did do the work, but I did the work just enough. And I didn't fully put myself into it. So we got engaged, we got married. And in our first year of marriage, he had an affair with a woman who I thought was a friend of mine. He left, filed for divorce, and moved out days before our 1-year anniversary. During this time, I knew the affair was going on. I was puking up blood. I had diarrhea. I had 2 ulcers. And I finally decided to get help. And everything changed. And my deepest, darkest time, I stayed sober. And staying sober, I didn't just do that. I stayed celibate. I got off social media completely. And I went into a spiritual journey that makes it so that I can live the life I live today. And it brings me to tears because during that time, I just didn't want to repeat the same pattern again. I just didn't want to live that life again. And I knew that if I didn't get help, I was going to repeat it with another man. And so I knew that I needed to do the work, and I did. And so we actually ended up reconciling 3 weeks before our divorce. And we dated for 1.5 years longer than that. And now we have 2 beautiful boys together. We live in the same house that came to me in a vision before we even got back together. And we're about to go to Vegas to celebrate our 10-year wedding anniversary. And I'm over 13 years sober from drugs and alcohol. And this is so important to me because when I had my second son, I went through postpartum depression, and I realized that I am here to help women feel alive. I am here to help them heal sexually and reconnect with that pleasure queen, reconnect with that sexy goddess, and know that no person can validate their self-worth. No person can validate them. And I have helped so many women find the partner of their dreams, reconnect with their current partner, and feel freedom like never before without forcing their partner to change. Because Ray and I, my husband and I, we shifted without going through marriage counseling because I worked on me. I stood in my truth and I honored his journey, and he changed and did work in his own ways. And I continue to do that. Do I fall off my goddess chair? Yes, I do. Did I mess up last week? Yes. Was I disrespectful to my husband? Yes. But do we have a beautiful marriage and partnership? Yes. And it's my life's mission to help women know that they can also have an incredible life, regardless of their past. It doesn't matter what happened. So
that is so powerful. Wow. I mean, literally you had me in tears and then I was swelling up because that's what it's all about. We're not perfect, but we are on our own unique, perfect journey. We all are going to be different. But just for my audience and just for the listeners listening in today to know that there's always hope. And it's a decision. It's a decision. And when we realize that we can decide, that's when all the power comes back to us, right?
I love that you bring that up because a part that I didn't share was I was on the condo floor crying my eyes out. I felt my feelings like never before during that time, but I was crying and I was just yelling up to God going like, why is this happening? I'm so done. I thought by getting sober and being honest that like, I was not going to have to deal with life. Right. And I heard God speak to me and he said, get up. You're meant to help women. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm a mess. How can I help women? And I was already coaching women, but he was like, no, like you need to really show up. And it was then that I truly decided and shifted that I was going to do the work. And it was then that I decided to move back in with my parents, and I spent a mortgage payment working with a coach every month, every week. I worked with her privately, but I spent a mortgage payment working with her, and I didn't move into my own apartment because I didn't want to repeat these patterns again, and I was willing to do whatever it took.
Well, that shows you how powerful getting help or getting a coach is. And I have people all the time ask me like, what do you do as a coach? And the most powerful thing we can do is hold space for someone and for them to know that we believe in them, that we're going to be there to support them, and that we are also there to, it's not just information, it's transformation, because we're pulling you all along the way with that accountability and that support. So I'm so excited for people to learn about you because you know what? There are probably some women out there that are actually in abusive relationships and they're wondering, should I even stay? And what kind of advice might you help them? I mean, is there a way for them to mend that relationship?
So, in some circumstances, I believe there is, but in some there isn't. But for me personally, I was in an abusive marriage. And what saved us was 2.5 years apart. So, and going through the divorce process and accepting that we may not work out. So I became comfortable knowing that my relationship status didn't define me. And I became comfortable knowing that I may be single for the rest of my life. And the unshakable confidence and the radical responsibility that I chose to have created new standards in my life and allowed for me to not put up with certain things anymore. And so when we did reconcile, we had both changed because I had changed. And so energetically, he met me where I was at and he did his work, but we shifted. We both shifted because we took time apart. So do I think that relationships can heal? 100%, 100%. But there is work that has to be done on both parts in their own ways. And I do not co-sign for physical abuse. And I also do not specialize in narcissism or domestic violence. So any woman coming to me with that, I do refer them out because that is not my specialty, but I do believe that you can heal from that. I do believe you can recover from that. And I do believe in miracles. But I do also believe that you have to also come to terms with the fact that it may not be okay.
Right. Absolutely. And that's so important, key, because basically we're only responsible for ourselves. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yes.
we can be the best, we can do all the work in the world. But if our spouse isn't doing any of the work, then you're not ever going to be energetically aligned again. But if you can both do the work, it could be beautiful again, just like what you guys have experienced. So, well, so what does it look like to work for you as far as what do you have going on right now? Do you have any programs that are coming up, or if somebody wants to get involved, or maybe they even want you to come speak?
Yes.
I'm sure you probably do speaking engagements. How do people best find you, and what do you have going on right now?
Yes, so I love doing women empowerment speaking events. So corporate speaking events when it comes to really empowering women to own their worth, especially inside corporate America. You know, we look at this and there has been a shift, but women empowerment, that is my specialty. And I love speaking on that. And so you can contact me through Facebook. You can also contact me on Instagram. And I am more than happy to hop on a call and discuss different options and what that looks like. So, and my availability. So I also love doing private coaching. It's just near and dear to my heart. And so I do have a few spaces open right now for that as well. And so contact me so we can see if you're a good fit. Because I have turned women down. Because here's the thing, your success is my success. And sometimes I'm not the best coach for you, but I may know somebody who is, and I can refer you to them. And so just like I said, I don't coach on domestic violence or narcissism. I will tell you if I'm not a good fit for you. And so I love to have that two-way conversation, because that to me is where we can really see how you can best expand to get the best results. Right now, I do have a 6-month program offer, the Sexy Goddess Inner Circle. Inside there, you have access to 30 plus guided meditations and tappings. You also have weekly teachings, weekly workbooks, and laser coaching available every week. But even more importantly, you get to walk this journey with other women. So inside this community, there are busy moms, there are single business owners, there are people who have just started dating, and you get to walk this journey with them to truly learn how to exude your sexy goddess energy, connect with your pleasure queen, and really have that romantic life far beyond your wildest dreams, and just regain that sparkle back in your life again. And so that is my group program offer as well. And then I have a 2-day paid masterclass that's incredible, that comes with a guided tapping. It comes with a 13-page workbook and 2 2-hour day teachings. So there's a lot of different options. And best of all, come find me in the Irresistible You Facebook group. There's complimentary teachings in there, and it's over 440 women, and it's just filled with tons of goodness, and you can have access to a ton of content, all complimentary.
Well, that's so beautiful, because you're helping women at every point. Some people are at a point where they, have the resources to go all in, which I always tell people to do if they can, but you're meeting them at every level. So that's beautiful. And just so everybody knows, I will have all of Jen's information below in whatever podcast, however you're watching this, through the podcast or on YouTube, all her information will be there. So you'll be able just, to be able to click and find her. But I want to ask you a couple more questions because I want to know if you could give any encouragement to someone out there listening that is just kind of stuck and their life isn't terrible, but they know it's not all that it could be. What advice would you offer if someone's struggling right now in their relationship?
I love this because I just did a TV recording. I'm a regular on the CW in Miami TV show. And so this has to do with the teaching that I actually just recorded on. And I will give you this piece of advice that not only is a huge factor of reconciling my marriage, it's a huge factor of me reconnecting with myself after postpartum depression. And it plays a giant role in me staying sober, happy, joyous, and free. Because a lot of people can be sober, but to be happy and sober is a whole nother ballgame. So this is the question. What is your part? When we keep the focus on us and we decide, so like you already discussed, Honor, it's a decision. If you want it, you will get it. When I say that I hired a private coach, I did group programs, I read tons of books, I cried, I felt my feelings. I really I let it all out. But here's the thing, is that you get to a point in your journey where you're like, well, I did the work. Well, the work continues. And so it's having that grace for yourself. It's having the ability to say, I messed up. When I was first healing and on this journey of spirituality and rediscovering myself and coming back home to myself, I wasn't the greatest person to work with at work. I wasn't the nicest human. I was a work in progress. And so there are times where things went really well. And then there was a time where I was kind of off my game there for a little bit. And I stuck with it. So ladies, I stuck with it. When I was served divorce papers and I thought that we were reconciling, I didn't give up. I continued to rededicate myself to myself. Because when your energy goes from what the other person's doing wrong and instead focuses on how am I showing up? How is my energy? What is draining my energy? And what action can I take to release those things from my life? What brings me joy and sparkle? And how can I add that back into my life? And it's holding myself accountable and knowing that I am worth it. And I can do this. And I am I am my best testimony. And if I can do it, you can do it. But is it going to be comfortable? No. Are you going to do it perfectly? No. I just had a not so great moment with my husband last week. I do this work. I've been coaching for over a decade. And I gave my husband unsolicited advice and was disrespectful. I caught myself 5 seconds later. But here's the thing, is that I didn't over apologize. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't get upset with myself. I was just like, interesting, Jen, huh? And I went about my day after I made amends, and then I moved on.
Yeah. Wow.
We're not perfect.
It's great advice. It's getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, but that is really the only place that growth happens. If we're comfortable, we're not moving because we like it. So that's great. Well, so I was going to ask you, what's your life's biggest lesson? And that might be it. I don't know. If I were to ask you, what's your biggest lesson in life?
Gosh, I feel like I keep getting bigger lessons just keep happening. Right. And so, but really the one that changed my life the most and brought me back home to myself and allowed for me to see that being sexy is safe. And, for the longest time, I didn't know that, coming from a woman who worked in a strip club, who was raped the first time she had sex. Being sexy meant I was going to be hurt. Being sexy meant that my body was for someone else's pleasure. And so the biggest transformation in my life was me falling on my rock bottom and going through the divorce process with my husband. It shook me to the core, to the point where I cried myself in the morning before I went to work, and I cried at night punching the bed. and I felt my feelings and I showed up. I did not sleep in bed. I kept going to work. I kept showing up for women, and I didn't give up. And that moment changed everything.
Wow, mic drop. I have chills right now. So, so this has been so amazing. Well, I love to ask and end, well, I love to end every podcast asking my guests the exact same question. This is called the Honor It All podcast. So what are you choosing to honor today?
I'm choosing to honor myself first, because when I honor myself and my sexual desires, my inner wants and desires, I can then honor my husbands, I can honor my children. Because it's hard to, I am somebody who really struggled with codependency for a long time. That was one of my biggest struggles that I worked on years ago, and I still work on today. But when with my children, it's knowing that I don't need to sacrifice my life for them to have a good life, that I can be an entrepreneur, I can live my best life, I can do my hair and makeup and get my nails done, and my kids, their emotional needs can still be met and they can still have an amazing life. And that is something that I have really worked on the past few years. And I celebrate today to honor that you can be a mom, be a wife, and be a sexy goddess and have it all and celebrate it. Because when we show up for ourselves, we have a ripple effect and we show up for others on a higher level.
Wow. That's a mic drop for sure. So thank you so much, Jen. I so enjoyed having you here today. It's been such an honor to have you on the Honor It All podcast. And I just want to remind everyone that to honor yourself, honor today, because it is a gift. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun. It was great seeing you.
Great. I'm so excited. And everyone have a wonderful day.